This year's theme for African American History Month is African Americans and the Arts. This is a broad theme that encompasses the beauty and breadth of our creativity and ability to become an indelible part of American history through visual arts such as prints and canvas, entertainment through movies, and the written word. I will focus on two authors. Marguerite Ann Johnson, also known as Maya Angelou, was an American poet and civil rights activist who published autobiographies, essays, and plays. One of her most famous books was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is a coming-of-age story that illustrates the strength of character and love of literature while overcoming racism and trauma as a child. A memorable amongst many of her memorable poems was written and performed at President Bill Clinton's inauguration entitled On the Pulse of the Morning. She was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in 1972 and was presented with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2010 by President Barack Obama. One of her famous quotes was, "I have learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel."
There's an African American song, 19th century, which is so great. It says, when it looked like the sun wasn't gonna shine anymore, God put a rainbow in the clouds. Imagine. And I've had so many rainbows in my clouds. I had a lot of clouds, but I have had so many rainbows. And one of the things I do when I step up on a stage, when I stand up to translate, when I go to teach my classes, when I go to direct a movie, I bring everyone who has ever been kind to me with me. Black, white, Asian, Spanish-speaking, Native American, gay, straight, everybody. I say, come with me. I'm going on the stage. Come with me, I need you now. Long dead, you see? So I don't ever feel I have no help. I've had rainbows in my clouds. And the thing to do, it seems to me, is to prepare yourself so that you can be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud. Somebody who may not look like you, may not call God the same name you call God, if they call God at all. You see? And may not eat the same dishes prepared the way you do, may not dance your dances or speak your language, but be a blessing to somebody. That's what I think.
Maya Angelou. James Arthur Jones, whom we know as James Baldwin, was a prolific writer of essays, plays, poems, and books. As a youth, he was an avid reader, and by the 5th grade, had read books by exalted authors such as Fyodor Dostoevsky and Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. He is well known for his books Go Tell It on the Mountain, as well as If Beale Street Could Talk, which was actually made into a movie. It has been said that many of his characters share a reality of restriction, each reaching for an identity within their social environment. And sometimes they find that identity imperfect, but sufficient enough to bear the world, whether it is because of racism, sexism, economics, or politics. In 2005, The United States Postal Service created a first-class postage stamp dedicated to Baldwin, which featured him on the front with a short biography on the back of the peeling paper. My favorite quotes from him are, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." This next one is especially true today with the advent of the banning of books. It is certain, in any case, that ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have. James Baldwin.
Next, we briefly dive into the cinematic space of our Black directors who have made us feel various ways when we are glued to both the large and small screen. We'll start off with Compton, California's very own Ava DuVernay. DuVernay's aunt was very instrumental in exposing her to art by taking her to museums and movies that Compton didn't offer at the time.
Film is a patriarchal system that's built by men for men, predominantly for white men. That's the history of the medium in the United States. There's a lot of talk about shattering the ceiling, and certainly I sit here privileged, right, after decades of women who have done it. But in general, I think a lot less about breaking down his door or shattering his ceiling and more about building my own house. It comes down to who gets to tell the story. If the dominant images that we have seen throughout our lifetimes, our mother's lifetimes, our grandmother's lifetimes, have been dominated by one kind of person, and we take that, we internalize it, we drink it in as true, as fact. It's tragic because it goes beyond just the film industry. You know, these are the images of ourselves that we consume. It affects the way we see ourselves and the way that other people see us.
DuVernay has gone on to direct films that highlight the untold stories of the Black experience in the United States. These movies include Selma, that highlighted details and intricacies of the March on Washington with Martin Luther King, the documentary 13th, which highlighted the history of racial inequality in the U.S., and When They See Us, a film that highlights the quintet labeled as the Central Five, soon to be relabeled as the Exonerated Five. Next, we highlight Oakland, California's Ryan Coogler, who found his breakthrough by taking us on an emotional roller coaster of highlighting the tragic story of Oscar Grant in Fruitvale Station. Coogler grew up in the Bay Area, where he felt as though he was going to become a football star, until he turned in a writing assignment to a college professor who pulled him aside and encouraged him to take a career change.
She grabbed my paper, and she looked at it, and she said, "Well, I read your paper, and it was really visual. You know, while I was reading it, I felt like I was there." And she said, "That's actually arguably rarer than being good at math or science. And you should consider being a writer. You know, you can do the same things you're talking about, but maybe even on a bigger level. You should maybe even consider going to Hollywood and writing screenplays," is what she said. So I was completely weirded out at that moment. And I'm like, this lady.
What did you think when she told you
I thought she was crazy. Like I didn't even know what a screenplay was. You know what I mean? And I remember looking at her, and she had all these books behind her. Like, she had this wall of books.
And if it wasn't for this conversation, we wouldn't have received other great films such as Marvel's Black Panther starring Chadwick Boseman, and Creed 1, 2, and 3 revamping the Rocky series starring both Sylvester Stallone and Michael B. Jordan. Coogler has gone on to become a recipient of 4 NAACP awards, 4 Black Reel Awards, and nominated for 2 Academy Awards, a Golden Globe, and a Grammy. Last but not least is South Los Angeles' very own Jo Issa Diop, who first garnered attention from her YouTube series titled The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl, that she made because of the lack of diversity that she would see on screen.
My goal isn't to be on TV. I'm making this for the internet, and I don't even imagine that the TV would pick this up. And so the one time that I did that and I made something for the internet, that's when I got all the TV questions. And it was great, but I never really saw it on TV. And it's weird. I don't know why, but I always felt like TV would change it. And there was just a certain raw element that the internet allows. And I just didn't think that TV was ready for it at the time. And now, you know, I've been approached, like it's gotten me in the room and it's great. But honestly, I don't know. If it's not on cable, if it's not on HBO, if it's not in a place where I would have like free reign, I think that it's just fine on the internet. It's done what it needs to do. I would love to make a film.
Ray recalled a time where she questioned quitting her job after not being able to afford a cup of coffee. And soon after, she realized that there was potential in the show when she found that many people believed in her after doubling her fundraising goal online to produce it. Since then, Ray has moved on to direct her own HBO series, Insecure, which made us romantically and comedically navigate today's young black professional scene in Los Angeles while highlighting and bringing attention to many local black businesses. Issa has gone on to become the nominee of over 50 awards and has received NAACP, Black Reel, and many more awards for Outstanding Actress in a Comedy Series. As Issa Rae continues to thrive, her visions pour outside of the screen and into the community as well.
And then the opportunity for jobs to employ people within the community, for training programs, I honestly know that there's so many iconic areas in South LA that tourists would be interested in, recognizing, like, this is from Boys in the Hood and this is from Love and Basketball. There's just so many things that could engage the community in general that I feel like we need.
Issa Rae. Next, we will highlight our handcrafted artists.
Annie Lee. Annie Frances Lee, born 1935 in Gadsden, Alabama, was an international acclaimed artist and gallery owner known to art collectors over the world as Annie Lee. She was also known for her depiction of African American everyday life and her unique ability to celebrate African American culture. Her work is characterized by images without facial features. She used body language to show emotions and expressions in her work. Her most popular paintings are Blue Monday, My Cup Runneth Over, and Love Song.
I had my portfolio and I was looking through it and there was a lady standing and she said, "Who did those paintings?" And I said, "I did." She said, "You're kidding." She said, "When you get back to Chicago, you should contact my boss." So anyway, I called when I got back and he said, "We've never ever sold any African American art at all, but let's try it." It took about 2 years to get enough paintings for me to have a show. And there was one that I liked myself, but it was Blue Monday. Today, that's still my best seller. That's where I looked every morning, getting up, going to that railroad. And one day I said, "I know somebody's got to feel bad like that. I hate that job." It became a challenge to me to try to give you the message without you seeing the face.
Kehinde Wiley. Wiley was born in South Central Los Angeles in 1977 and was raised by an African American mother. In 2017, he was commissioned to paint President Obama. It was President Obama's official portrait to appear in the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. Wiley said, "The ability to be the first African American painter to paint the first African American president of the United States is absolutely overwhelming."
So much of my work before was about symbols of power, the performance of power, the illusion and regalia surrounding power.
Here's a man who actually has power.
That's right. So who's the man?
Yeah.
And I think that's what that painting's about. That's why the collar loosens. He leans forward to you in the painting space. And the source of that power is his connection to the people.
Yeah.
And so what I'm really doing is painting power in its most raw form.
Irene Brown. Mrs. Irene Brown, a member of Mount Tabor since 1964, is Mount Tabor's artist in residence. She majored in art at LACC, and she taught in the Los Angeles Unified School District for 36 years before she retired. These are a few samples of her painting with oils and other mediums.